Tesla and the market are up solid today. I closed out my calls that we got in yesterday for an $1,800 profit, and all day we were calling potential highs of about $202 to $204. And you can see that yesterday we had this break of structure as we went over. We saw this massive sell-off down to our target level of about 193, and our lower level was down at $190. And we knew that on the daily chart, which we covered extensively yesterday, you can go back and watch that video if you want to see the full analysis on how we could move back up to 220. But we knew that there was a massive sell-off and that we were probably going to hit this point where we are extremely oversold. Whenever I take a position for a trade or even a long-term investment, I always make sure to, number one, predefine my terms, meaning how long do I want to play in this, what economic data is going to be coming out within this time, what money am I willing to risk, and then I go into how long is this going to play out. And so from here, we knew that entering long on Tesla, that we weren't really watching for this massive push back up to $220 instantly. There wouldn't be enough catalyst, but I did believe that there would be a lot of buyers coming in basically between $200 and about $196, which we did see a very solid bounce off of. If we come up here and we turn on our smart money concepts, you can see that we do have some resistance that's coming in up at about $205 to $206. This is why I was initially looking to close out at 204 and 206 today, because I thought that we'd probably see this bounce, this run through the 0.5 Fibonacci, and I figured that we'd probably reject around 204 or 206 because it was a high confluent area. The other thing to notice is that there's very little volume from 207 down to $200. A lot of you guys ask what indicator that is. It's just a volume profile indicator that I run on 252 candles. So if we're looking at a daily chart, that would be a year. And now you can see that we're seeing a little bit of issue going into the rest of the day. We're not able to push through 202 as we come into close, which was another reason that I decided to prematurely let go of the position. There's still a fair value gap up at 205.32, which basically means that that's a liquidity level where big money wasn't able to take the positions that they really wanted since we gapped down so heavy. Well, not gapped down, but sold off so heavy yesterday. So I still think that maybe Tesla could move its way back up tomorrow to about $206. Best case scenario. Now, what's going to end up happening tomorrow is we're going to have the Fed's decision. And a lot of people are expecting no rate hike, but what we're really going to need to watch is going to be the outlook, and if they leave open the fact that they're going to do a final rate hike in December, or even worse, if they say for sure that they're going to do another rate hike in December. Something that I'm always keeping an eye on when we go into economic data or something like a Fed decision is going to be, what is big money doing? Are they trying to hide any of their positions? Are they blatantly just taking whatever positions they want? Because our idea and our trades around our technical analysis and around our strategy, which we've back tested literally thousands of times in real time and actual back testing, we believe in that and we stand by that, which is why we take every single position that comes our way. But what if there was a way that we could actually use some insider information that other hedge funds have, that big money uses, that any institutional investor uses? And the way to do that is just to find out what they're doing. And so that's why we use certain flow scanners like black box stocks, which is what you guys are going to see here. I talk a lot about this within our Discord community. I share a lot of our flow on Twitter, which is handpicked. So go follow us over there and make sure you're part of the Discord, because the Discord's got over 12,000 members. And you can also trade with me every single day over there. You can upgrade. It's $50 a month. In the past 2 days, we're up like almost $16,000. So really, really good week. Last week wasn't as hot, but that's the trade-offs of trading. And if you're actually someone who takes portfolio management seriously and trading seriously, then go ahead and check it out. It's more than worth your time and your energy, I promise. So looking at the rest of the day, I did call out some of the unusual flow. Really nothing too crazy. As we were talking about, we're constantly watching for this unusual options activity to give us a little bit better conviction into our normal trades. So if I see, for instance, a bull flag set up on Tesla that's hitting all my requirements, that has good volume, and then I see an institution come in and hit a big order on Tesla to the upside, like for instance these calls that came through at 135, which we're going to talk about today. If I see something like this happen and these come through at 135, there's a solid chance that we're going to probably run for the rest of the day. And so what we can see is we ended up having this push I'm going to actually make this full screen so it's a little bit easier for you to see. But we end up having this push, we end up pulling back down, and we're using this 15-minute open range breakout as this resistance level. I talk a lot about this for the day traders that are within our community, but using an open range breakout just to dictate, number one, what the trading range is going to be for the day, and number two, what's the trend going to be for the day. Because normally if we break out over the first 15 minutes high of the day, we see a run all the way up, for the rest of the day, which is why I was expecting, and I was tweeting highs of day, probably 200, 202, 204. And that's where we were getting those levels from. So we get this pullback, and then right around 130, unusual flow comes through on Tesla. And the one thing that I like to say is that not all flow is going to actually be unusual. What you will have to do throughout your trading career is learn how to decipher what's actually happening. Most flow is not going to be confirmed, which means we don't actually know if it was a buy or a sell. In this instance, if we just come over here and look at the bottom left side of your screen at the most active calls for the day, we see that Tesla has $22 million in calls. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that $22 million is nothing to Tesla. Like it's so insignificant. A normal day would be like 120, 130. Some of the bigger days you guys will see will cover $400 or $500 million in calls for the day. And so if we actually go over and look at the bullish flow, which this is going to be confirmed flow, and might be a little bit more of an advanced theory, but we're going to talk about this because it's very important whether you're a trader or a long-term investor, because here's the truth. We don't move the market. None of us do. Obviously, even if we all got together, we couldn't move anything. And big money themselves can't move anything. They need other institutions and other players to come in and start moving prices and start moving the market in a specific direction. So if you can actually learn to view what's happening in real time behind closed doors, because number one, most people don't even understand flow. The even smaller few don't even understand how to read it. And then from there, even smaller subsets understand how to use it properly and build it into an edge and use proper risk management with it. So we're going to go over the difference between what's actually a confirmed flow and what's an unconfirmed flow. If we move over to what's called the heat map, it might look like some dorky Excel spreadsheet, but I promise you, if you learn to read this correctly, you're going to make a shit ton of money. So looking at this, we have all of our strike prices here right in the middle of the screen. If you've never read an options chain before, go to our Discord community and take our free courses. We teach you guys everything about options over there, as well as technical analysis. And we have more courses that are coming out. They're going to be on reading flow. But basically to the left, you're going to see C0. C0 means all calls. C0 means all calls that are going to be expiring this Friday. So as in November 3rd. C1 is going to be all calls that are going to expire next Friday or 2 weeks out from now. And C2 is going to be any that go further than 2 weeks. So quickly looking at this heat map, we don't know what these levels are. Like these might expire in a year or two. We don't know. But just taking a glance here, we know that there was a decent amount of action today. The right side is going to be the same thing, but for puts. So P0 is going to equal puts that expire this Friday. P1 is going to be puts that expire next Friday. And P2 is going to be puts that expire 2 weeks or more from now. And obviously the highlighted 200 here is the closest strike to the current price of the underlying asset. Now, if you're somebody who has read a heat map before, or you have an understanding about options, you might be saying, okay, well, on the left side, we have white, which I don't know what that is. I mean, I do, and we'll go over it, but you might not know what white is, but green is probably good. How come there's a lot of green over here in the puts side? Because puts, to most people, they think puts means down or puts is bad. Well, in this instance, these are people who are selling cash secured puts, probably large institutions, banks, or people who make money off of selling premiums, which is what I mainly used to do before I started teaching. From here, you can see that we had a lot of cash secured puts. So a lot of people are banking that Tesla will not close. So this isn't uberly bullish. I hope you understand this. This doesn't mean go buy a ton of calls. But big money is banking on the fact that Tesla will not close below $195 next week, $197.50 next week, and $200 next week. So this doesn't mean that they think it's going to completely rebound back up to $200, but that's a pretty good sign. So for somebody like myself who sees that Tesla was kind of bottoming out today at that level of about 196 to 197, and then I see that big money is selling cash secured puts, I myself as a trader am saying, okay, they're not massively bullish on it. There might be a couple of guys who are going in and getting some calls, which we're going to go over in a moment. And one of the calls was a 45% return. I'm going to share with you how we're able to watch that play out. But I'm more so thinking that it's a pretty safe bet, thinking that we're probably going to bounce at least up to 205 to 210. So what could have changed my mind, and maybe what would have made me actually hold the calls overnight, would have been if we saw a ton of confirmed bullish flow over here on the left. So now we're going to talk about confirmed and unconfirmed, because all of the flow and all of these contracts that you see here in white, whether it's the call side or the put side, the reason they're there is because they are unconfirmed flow for Tesla stock. The reason it's unconfirmed is because we do not know if they came in on the bid, below the bid, or on the ask and above the ask. This means that we cannot actually confirm and be certain that these were actually bullish or bearish trades. Because a lot of flow algorithms out there will just be like, oh, look, 14,297 $200 puts expiring this Friday. And you might look at that and be like, holy shit, that is a lot. And it is. But what if it's somebody selling cash secured puts? In this case over here, it was someone selling cash secured puts. And if you didn't know how to read that correctly, you might be watching somebody post on Twitter or in stock twits or something being like, dude, look at all the flow coming through, all this bearish flow on Tesla. But if you actually were able to pull the lens out, watch the flow, and be like, no, dude, they're selling cash secured puts. Like, that's the complete opposite sentiment as to what's actually going to move the market today. Well, the options market, I should say, because the options market's not going to mess with the underlying, which would be Tesla specifically. So looking here, we did see one unusual flow come through that caught my eye. These expired 11/3, so instantly we know that this is going to be a day trade or max maybe a one-night hold. So I was thinking to myself, well, if we're trading back down here around 197, I'm still looking for 202. Someone's coming in here and hitting 202, and they're hitting these 210 strikes. So the 210 strike is even further away, and this guy's got a lot of money on the line currently, and he ended up making a 44% gain if they decided to close out. So the biggest thing that we're looking for is going to be confirmed flow, meaning that we know that it was bought on the bid or the ask. And the way that we can quickly look at this is just by seeing what's the bullish versus the bearish flow. And here's a more telling story for you guys. Most active calls, Tesla was 22 million. But if we actually look at the real confirmed flow, Tesla's nowhere to be found. If you look at most active puts, Tesla's at $327 million. $327 million. But we know that because this is unconfirmed Tesla puts, most of this is people selling cash secured puts. So I could go on here, and I'm not going to do this. I was actually contemplating to be like, dude, that's a good title. $327 million worth of Tesla puts came in today. But I was like, that's a little disingenuous because yeah, I could say that's true, but it's really not, because if we actually went through and netted all of them out, it's nowhere near it. So you might ask yourself, okay, well, if it says Tesla has $327.28 million in puts, what was the actual net? We just go to bearish flow, 44 million. So of the 250 million, the only confirmed was 49 or 44 million, which is crazy. That's literally like a third or less of a third, way less of a third than what you would have potentially thought it was. Now, here's the thing, 44 million confirmed is still not the best, but there is much more people who are selling cash secured puts and seem to be a little bit more bullish on Tesla within the next couple of days than it seems for people to potentially be bearish. So taking a look at yesterday, a lot of you guys love the fact that I was going over questions that you had on Twitter. So if you guys ever have a question, throw it up on Twitter. I'll take a screenshot and we will go over it, because I think that one of the most helpful things for you guys is to answer your question specifically, because I think that so many people probably have the same questions as investors or traders, and not a lot of people on the internet are actually answering those specific questions. So if you ever have a question or a ticker you want me to go over, tag me over on Twitter, or if you're part of our Discord community, let me know and we will go over it. And one of the ones that you guys were really asking about was Nvidia. And Nvidia today, I don't know if it actually closed down. This morning it was down about 2% when I ended up arriving to the office. But All right, we ended up closing down about 1%. So a lot of people are asking about this, and this is actually a position that I really made some good money with puts on, but I want to talk about if I plan to re-enter them. So looking here at Nvidia, this type of technical analysis will be applicable, as we always say, to anything that you're trading. And even though if you're somebody who's a long-term investor, watching these daily charts and watching these weekly charts for not just liquidity levels, but levels that you could potentially average down at. If I'm looking to invest in Nvidia long-term, I know that a really solid level is to be buying at 378 and 390. This is where big money's buying, so this is where I'm going to buy. If it breaks 370, I'm going to wait and buy at 280, and I'm going to wait and buy at 270. Think like an institution, right? This way you don't have to be saying to yourself, what should I do? What should I buy? How should I do it? So in this instance, all we're looking for is to buy when big money's looking to buy. And this, of course, really is only going to work on a company that you believe in for the long term. We're talking more long-term investor, or if you're trading with the trends. So I ended up taking a put position last week. And the reason for it was we had a lot of selling pressure here on the daily chart. Big money was coming through and selling. A lot of people ask me about this indicator. This is going to be called the Smart Money Concepts by Lux Algo. There's a video on our YouTube channel from last week that's titled, I think it's just Tesla Stock SMC. If you want the full tutorial, I highly recommend you go and watch that. And so what we were looking for was this break here of this change of character, or this big support. So this area of interest was a really, really strong level of support. 1, 2, 3, and now potentially 4 more times. And to be quite honest, these are some of the easiest trades that you can usually pull off, because when you find a really good area of interest like this, you can wait for these pullbacks down to this area of interest, or down to this support level of like 408 to 412, and you can look to just go long right at that level, set a very, very tight stop loss on a lower low, and then easily ride it back up to the golden zone, or even the 0.5 Fibonacci, which gives you a 5-to-1 RVR, meaning that you can literally lose 5 times, and as long as you make money on that 6th, you're going to be more than fine, let alone if you would have ridden it back up until we saw some sell signals. Same situation happening down here when we saw this pull back down to this support. We saw this very strong move back down here after earnings, bouncing, but you could have done the same thing. So could have went long, set a stop loss down here on a lower low, take profit right back up here at 472, which once again is a 7.5 RVR. So right there, you would have made 15% and then about another 12 or 13% within just a couple of months. And we were watching 2 levels to potentially go short. The first was on this push that we ran back up to 472. We know that this golden zone, golden pocket, golden goose, whatever you guys decide to call it, I've just been calling it a golden zone my entire career. This level is a solid level of rejection. I usually am watching the 0.618 and the 0.786, but looking here, what else started to set up within that golden zone? A big money bearish block. So you can see how well we respected it. We actually came up, even if we were to actually go over here, and you guys can watch in real time. I'll let this candle play out. Look and see how well we respect this golden zone level. We push up, coming up into this level. I'm gonna have to speed this up. It's actually as slow as a snail. But as we come up into this level, we're sitting at about 468.76. We doji here. So we see selling pressure come through. This is a bad sign. Big engulfing candle, barely able to hold here. And it's at this point now, well, back here I should have said, back here is where we would have went to go short, setting our stop loss at a higher high, and the take profit back down at about $415, which would have been, once again, not as good, but about a 4-to-1 risk versus reward, which we would have ended up hitting. Now, on the second position, which we took last week, I actually called this out on Twitter. So if you guys are not following me there, you're missing out on some good trades, I promise you. So here, we were watching for this potential drop because we saw this massive sell-off, big move up, and this drop through. And you can see we have change of character. So now the 409 is broken. There's a pretty significant and easy move back down to $380 to catch that support level. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm very surprised that this got bought up so quickly today. I thought that we were going to bottom at 390, and I was going to potentially look to see if we bounced off of there, but we were able to hold. At this moment, I don't plan to go long on Nvidia. I think the best move is seeing if we're ending up holding here and then watching for a potential rejection at $420. And from there, I'd be looking to ride down to 380, and from 380, back down to 290. Now, I'm not saying for sure that this is what's going to happen, but I'm just saying that if I were to look at this and say, what's the risk versus reward? What's the potential upside? I don't think we're going to get over 460 for the rest of the year. So it's either hopefully we get that put position or that downward move, or we're just not going to take a trade at all. Now moving to the S&P 500, which a lot of people had asked about as well. Moving to perfection, right? As we were expecting yesterday, talked about this bounce off of point of control at $412, which is the highest amount of volume within the past year, a very strong level. And as always, we're watching for this move back up to our golden zone of about 426 to 430. If the S&P 500 bounces back up into this level, I will be looking to open a very, very strong and very aggressive put position back down. In a perfect scenario, we would sit back and hopefully see this push all the way up to 431.50 or 431, setting a stop loss up here at about 435 to 436 and a take profit down at 411 would give us a 4.6 RVR, which would be absolutely crazy. That's one of those trades that if this plays out, and I would have very high conviction in this, unless like a ton of buying came through and it looked like we were going to break through the resistance, I'd feel very confident in taking a position, because even if it doesn't play out to the way that we want and we end up losing money, it was a beautiful setup with well-calculated risk, and it was more than worth taking the position. I hope this helped, guys. We'll go through the Fed tomorrow. We'll see how the decision is. We will go through and see how the market also reacts. If you guys want access to all my trades, go check them out. The link is in the description. There's over 12,000 members in our Discord community, and over there, once you're a premium member, you'll get access to all of our swing trades as well as all of our day trades. Absolutely be killing it today and yesterday, up a lot. Last week kind of sucked, but up so far this week about 17,500, and we'll see how the rest of the week pans out, guys. Thanks for all the support. I hope you have a great Halloween, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.